Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Stephanie Bone. I'm the CMO of Sharebite, the leading meal benefits platform designed exclusively for the enterprise. Before I begin, I'd like to briefly describe myself for any of our guests who are visually impaired. I am a light-skinned woman with dark brown hair at my shoulders. I have brown eyes, and I'm wearing a pink and red turtleneck sweater. We are also offering closed captions, so that's available to you. And if you would like any other accommodations to access this content, please feel free to reach out. So without further ado, we'll jump in. Over the last 3 years, a lot has changed. It's been a volatile economic climate, and certainly with the pandemic, the way that the workplace looks and functions has changed a lot. And as a natural consequence of that, the way that we as people who work for companies feel about our jobs and what we expect from our employers has changed a lot. We think more about culture and connection and commitment to purpose. And so these are things that we're looking to our employers to think about and be really strategic about. And in spite of the fact that there's been a downturn, it still is a supplier's market. Companies will need to do what they can to attract and retain top talent. And so all of this kind of puts HR professionals and recruiters and workplace experience leaders in perhaps an uncomfortable or unfamiliar territory where they really need to be on the cutting edge and make sure that they're addressing what employees care most deeply about, and appreciating the fact that that has changed quite a bit over the last 3 years. So what we wanted to do is dig into a research project with our friends at Wakefield Research and better understand what employees and office professionals are, what's top of mind for them, what they care most about, and the impact of giving them what they want. And the good news is that it's not as complicated as we may think. It's lunch. So without further ado, I'm excited to introduce Nathan Richter, who is a senior partner at leading research company Wakefield Research, and our co-founder and CEO, Dilip Rao, who will share some really interesting insights and then have a quick chat about what they mean. This will be about a half hour long. We're going to do our best to keep it to that length because we know it is hard to take a break during the day. You will have access to this video recording as well as to the presentation. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Nathan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you, Dilip. Thank you, Sharebite, for having me here today. Very happy to share our research findings with you, after which we'll have a little Q&A too. So before I go much further, just so I can describe myself for our visually impaired guests, I am a white male wearing a blue collared shirt with rapidly graying hair, maybe too rapidly recently. So very pleased to have all of our guests with us. We're going to talk over some of the research findings today. Before we do, I just want to spend a moment reminding everyone who we surveyed. And so this is a survey of 500 US office professionals at companies of 200 or more employees. And so why that's important is that this is quantitative research, it's representative research. So it means that any of the findings and trends learnings that we discussed today are applicable to the broader universe of office professionals working in similar environments. So as you look at this research, know that it's very methodologically rigorous, and that it's decision grade, that you can actually make decisions based on this. So great, let's, as they say, dig in, and we'll go to the next slide here. Thank you so much. So let's start with something fun but illustrative. Often these things can go hand in hand in good research. We asked office professionals which perk they'd prefer to receive from an employer, and we just presented two options. It's a very simple question. So would you prefer an additional week of paid time off, of PTO, or would you prefer a meal benefit, five days a week of meals at work in the office? And I think surprisingly, 31%, so nearly a third, opted for the meal benefit over an additional week of paid PTO. That's surprising. Even more surprising is for those under 40, that figure jumps to 38%. So a significant percentage of the office professional population is really highly valuing this meal benefit. That is particularly interesting to us for a few reasons. The main one is that think about the conversation being had today about employee benefits, about work-life balance. PTO is, and people's personal time is one of the greatest benefits and commodities that one can receive. And yet, when placed in head-to-head competition with a meal benefit, nearly a third and sometimes more, depending on the sub-audience, are opting for that meal benefit over more time off. That to us was striking. And so this is sort of a bit of a fun premise, but it does, we think, an excellent job of conveying the value of a meal benefit and the value that workers place on this. Moving to the next slide here, we asked office professionals if they would leave their current position for a similar job with a similar salary, but for a company that offered free meals. And 61% would consider switching companies under those circumstances. And that figure increases to 71% amongst the under 40 crowd. And so for us, again, this demonstrates the desirability of this benefit as a differentiating factor for employees. That just about a third and sometimes more would be willing, very or extremely likely actually, so it's a very strong opinion, to make such a change under those circumstances is compelling to us. Let's now just take a look at what effect free meals could have on employees returning to the office. Obviously, it's a huge topic of conversation. Much has been made of how, whether people want to come back and how to bring them back, and a meal benefit can be part of that solution. When we ask those whose company does not currently offer free meals, 29% said they would go in more often if their employer offered this benefit. And that figure increases to 40% when you look at those who are either hybrid or fully remote. And so when we kind of see a breakdown of how many additional office days that can translate to, just to give you a feel for it, 16% said it would be one more day a week, and 13% said it would be 2 or more days a week. And so considering that the work week is only 5 days, it feels longer sometimes, but it's only 5 days. Those are significant increases in on-site attendance. One more note on this: if we filter the data to look at those who are hybrid or fully remote, 1 in 5, 20% said they would go in an additional day, and 20% would go in 2 or more days per week. So you have larger and larger segments saying that they go in for greater and greater time. Let's move to the next slide here. Okay. So we've established already that free meals are a motivating factor for office professionals. But let's now just take a step back and look at how these office professionals perceive the benefit of a lunch break, sort of in what ways it can improve their day. And here for me, it's unavoidable. I'm remembering what my mother told me, what your mother probably told you. What I certainly tell my children is that skipping a meal is a problem, right? It makes us grumpy. It has negative impacts on our mood and our energy. And apparently that advice stuck. 97% of respondents acknowledge that when they have a meal break, that their day is better. And in research, that's a huge figure. There's not a great deal of consensus in research, as in life, as in the world. So that 97% of people recognize that this is that the benefit to their mood and productivity when they eat means that they understand the advantage of this. There are specific advantages to taking a lunch break that they also recognize. 64% note that it gives them more energy. A similar number says it puts them in a better mood, 63%. Workers also feel that it allows them to think about things outside of work and increases their productivity levels. It's 60% and 51% respectively. So very few people are disparaging about lunch breaks. Worth noting, I do think that over time and in culture that has changed. That it used to be sort of a badge of honor to skip lunch, and what people are saying now is no, that we understand that it's in our best interest to make sure we eat. So going to the next slide, we had to ask ourselves then, so what gets in the way? And why are these people sort of volunteering to make their days a little harder? Knowing that lunch offers these benefits, why aren't people taking lunch breaks at work? And well, around 2 in 5, so 43%, said it's because they get too busy and they forget. About as many, 39%, just want to push through work as fast as possible. Similar number, 37% cited scheduling conflicts. And then I think a bit of an outlier in the drivers here, 28% said skipping lunch can save them money. And so for the most part, with the exception of the last item there, the reasons office professionals skip lunch is they believe it's needed to accomplish all they have to do in a workday. And this is funny because they know, the research shows this runs counter to what we know to actually be true, that skipping lunch doesn't help you accomplish things. It has a negative impact on performance and productivity. So, as we think about the impact of that, companies who encourage their employees to take a lunch break, who facilitate that, it stands to reason they should realize the benefits we discussed. All right, moving to the next slide. So how does this actually play out? Well, the vast majority, 89% of office professionals told us they face obstacles to taking lunch breaks and don't always take time to eat. And in fact, 14% never take even a 20-minute break from work to eat a meal, and only and 7% only take a break 1 or 2 days a week. So together, that's more than 1 in 5. It's a lot of people, and when we think of the cost to companies, I think you can you can magnify that impact across the enterprise. Okay, moving to the next slide, and we also examined how employees view free meals compared to commonly offered benefits such as transportation reimbursement, gym memberships, even premium services such as babysitting. And free meals actually took the top spot. Nearly 2/3, 64%, said they would use that benefit most often. They're presented with this whole list of benefits that you see in front of you. This is followed by transportation reimbursement, 50%, and FSAs, flexible spending accounts, at 37%. The next slide. So if we know that free meals are one of the most sought after benefits, it really begs the question of which features of such a program are most important. And so this is what office professionals want in a food program. First is the majority, nearly 3 in 5, place convenience and ease of ordering first and foremost in their list of priorities. And that makes sense because really the opposite of convenience is something that's hard, and who wants that? So it has to be easy to use. The other items all kind of follow a theme of flexibility. So flexibility is a key theme. More than half, 53%, say deciding when they can eat is a top feature. 52% say having their choice of a restaurant is crucial, and 47% said sort of having a variety of options to choose from is really the most important. This follows a lot of the other research that we see about in-office benefits and kind of the list of things available to people. Flexibility is huge, and you see that play out here in this research in multiple instances. Moving to the next slide. So office professionals, they see the benefits of an in-office meal program. There are benefits to their employers as well as in the form of increased retention and productivity, among other things. But before we go, I just want to give you a look at another kind of benefit. When Sharebite shared with us that every meal ordered on their platform results in a meal donation to address food insecurity in local communities, we asked office professionals how they view working for a company that includes a social good component, and roughly 62% said it's extremely or very important. And so I mentioned that here just because part of our job was to take a look at sort of the benefits to companies and employees of a meal benefit, but those benefits go beyond those of direct self-interest. And as companies are looking for ways to address employee needs, I think it's important to recognize for a lot of workers, they're interested in benefits to the community around them, and it's always nice to find a way to sort of do two things at once. So we're very pleased to see that here. That really concludes our brief overview of the data. I'm happy to talk a little bit here with my friend Dilip to see if you have any questions about it, and also take some Q&A.
Yeah, that was amazing. What a fascinating independent study, and what an incredible turnout today. There's some data that you put out here that a lot of which we kind of knew through practice and anecdotes, but there are things that we didn't fully have the data behind, and this sort of reaffirms a lot of that thesis. The question that I have is, in your perspective, what is the most important takeaway from the study, and how do you see these findings fitting into the sort of the broader cultural conversation that HR leaders are currently having as they evaluate and aim to address the shifting attitudes sort of, when it comes to the post-pandemic workplace, especially when it comes to with respect to benefits and the holistic package that people are thinking about?
Yeah, well, in terms of the most impactful kind of finding of the study, I think it's being able to quantify just the sacrifices that workers are making, either because they feel they need to get through their day, or for financial reasons. And when you extrapolate that out, the cost to companies when workers do that. It really is true. Like keep coming back to the age-old wisdom, parental advice. Like you have to take care of yourself, and if you take care of yourself, you'll be in a position to take care of others. And I think that really comes through in this research for me. The other thing that's surprising, I mentioned it earlier, just we see a lot of research, the desirability of mealtime, of free meals against other potential benefits was really surprising to me. And that's why I started with that head-to-head comparison against PTO. We have a saying here at Wakefield where the value of a statistic, sort of the surprise factor of it, is it's relative to the idea it represents. And so when you take an extreme comparison like that, and you say, I mean, for some people, a week of PTO is a significant increase in their allotment, and say, would you rather have an additional week or a meal benefit of 5 meals, free meals a week? The fact that a significant number opt for that is, to me, very compelling. In a bigger picture, opening the aperture and answering your question a little bit about kind of how this fits into other research. We do a ton of research all over the world, and we do a ton of research into topics of interest to companies in HR, people involved in recruitment and retention. And I think what this fits very nicely into that canon of research, in that it's a very tangible expression of how companies can use flexibility as a way to address employee needs. And if you think about a lot of the conversation being had in the HR space now, it's people talk about big picture stuff. Well, people want work-life balance, comes up all the time, right? They want flexibility. Well, what we're seeing here is this is a tangible thing that companies can implement to actually address that. The other thing you don't hear as often, and something that is a sort of personal theme here at Wakefield, some of the work that we've done, is flexibility is really about comfort, and you don't hear as much about comfort. And I think one of the reasons you see people saying, yes, I would take this benefit over even a week of PTO, is that it's comfortable to have this provided for you in your workplace. It makes your life easier, and that's related to flexibility. But I think in today's world, where a lot of people have the option to be extremely comfortable, they don't even know if we're wearing pants right now. You know, I am, but you know, where people, I'm sure, but you know, where people have the option to be extremely comfortable, increasing that comfort level in the office is important, and this is a way to do that. So maybe too much information, but you asked, so there's the answer.
No, absolutely. It was such a thorough answer. So to summarize that, it sounds to me that food benefits, while it's relatively cheap, it's kind of a cheap outlay for companies, you know, or cost effective, if you want to call it that. Is it safe to say that it's a force multiplier for sort of employee engagement and sort of company culture?
I think the research supports that, and I think the research also supports that it's a multiplier in other ways. So companies give benefits to employees because they want to reward their employees and show them that they're valued, right? It's pretty basic. But on the balance sheet, you know, awarding a lot of benefits comes at a real cost, and that cost isn't just monetary. When we award PTO, we lose continuity, we lose productivity. That's a pretty, you know, harsh way of looking at it, but that is the truth. One of the things interesting about this benefit, I think, is that it actually is a benefit to employees that enhances productivity, that encourages collaboration, cooperation, interaction, and continuity amongst workers on whatever work they're doing.
Makes total sense. You know, recently there was an article in the New York Times by Emma Goldberg, who covers, you know, the future of work. And the article was around, it was about analyzing what young job seekers are looking for in a dream job, which is understandably, you know, stability, of course, flexibility. From the research that you conducted, what do you think HR professionals today should consider or try to reprioritize when they're attempting to attract this younger sort of workforce? You know, I colloquially call Gen Z, but I'd much rather just kind of call it, you know, the modern workforce.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen the article. It's a great piece. It's very interesting. I'm not sure that article sort of rises to the level of a revelation, at the risk of picking a fight with our friends at the New York Times, who I love. You know, when I look at that article, they essentially define stability as, if you really look at it, as a reliable paycheck that's sufficient to meet one's living needs. And I'm not sure that's exactly a new motivation. You know, I think what a lot of people will think when they see that headline is that stability means, oh, people are looking to just stay in one place forever. If you don't read down into the column, that would be a takeaway, and that would be an incorrect takeaway. You know, it's not the case that with this generation that every company's recruitment and retention efforts, you know, need to be, you can just shelf that, mothball it. Everyone's going to stay forever. No, I mean, this generation of workers is going to do what really every generation of workers has done before them, at least since the boomer generation, which is the first 10 years, they're going to move around a lot. And so that comes at a cost to companies, and this recruitment retention conversation that everyone's been having is very real. So in the context of what we've been discussing, for me, again, that's where we come back to flexibility and comfort. Because if what people are saying is, I want stability, I want less craziness in my life, enhancing their comfort levels in the workplace, I think can actually do that. So to me, it plays into that theme. I think that article is very good. I think if you don't read past the headline, companies could make a mistake.
Sure thing. Yeah, we always look back at the 12th century Latin definition of company, you know, which means bread fellows, right? Compan with the bread. And so it's kind of interesting that the data and that your study helps support some of what probably used to happen, you know, a long time ago, and it's starting to happen once again. So super fascinating. You know, thank you so much. And what a turnout today. Thank you all for joining us. Those of you who are interested in learning about food benefits and how food benefits can be a force multiplier for your company culture, no matter what your workforce strategy is, whether you're in the office, permanently remote, or somewhere in between. please check us out. Visit us at sharebite.com. You can also email us info@sharebite.com, or you can reach out to us on LinkedIn, Twitter. We're all over the place. It was such an honor getting to speak with you today. Thank you once again, Nathan and the Wakefield Research team, for conducting this incredibly thorough study with so many participants. Thank you all for joining us.